Hello, this is Pupunup again with another game developer interview, and this time we have a game developer from Portugal, correct?
Correct. Hello,
Uh,
everyone.
Say hello to Nuno Donato. How are you, Nuno?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. So yeah, I think this is the first time I had somebody from Portugal. So you have a newly launched game that came out last month in February called Satellite Repairman,
hmm
and that's your third game on Steam. But before that, let's do a little bit of a icebreaker. So, what games have you been playing recently?
Playing. Let's see. The last ones. Well, I play Rocket League a lot. I'm a bit of
On
a
the PC or the PS4 or
PC. Yeah, I'm always PC.
okay.
So that's kind of my go-to game when I need to relax a little bit. I play Rocket League. But more serious games. Lastly, let's see. Life is Strange. I finished it recently. I love that game.
It's a good one.
Tomb Raider also. Uh,
The new one.
the last one that came out for Linux because I use Linux daily, so I
Right,
need to
right.
wait for games to be ported so that I can play them. So yeah, and before that, Firewatch, Stardew Valley also. Yeah, more or less that. Yeah.
So, growing up, what were your favorite games?
Well, I have a long history because I started playing games and the computer screens were still monochromatic. I
Right.
remember Prince of Persia in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
So from that time until today, I've played, hundreds of games from all kinds of genres and types, but mostly PC always. I never had a console actually, except Game Boy. I
Right,
never
right.
never had a console, so I'm still sticking to PC games.
So, how did you get into game development?
Well, I remember doing a first game in BASIC in MS-DOS like maybe 20 years ago,
Oh
and I
wow.
think it was the first time I had I tried to do some games. This was a long time ago, but then I quit and I became a programmer. I've done most of my professional work as a programmer, but not in games. And then a few years back, I think 2012, and for some reason, I bumped into this framework to do games called Love, which uses the Lua programming language, which is very simple. And I just got so excited with it. It was so simple to start doing things, and I just got hooked. And I started playing with prototypes and making small games and participating in game jams. And then from then on, the game started growing in complexity and size. And my first game on Steam was still made with that framework. It's called Autumn. It's a game about nature. And then from then on, I moved to a bit more complex engine to develop games. So it started, yeah, a long time back. But only more recently, it picked up some momentum.
Nice. So, tell us about Satellite Repairman. What is it about?
Well, Satellite Repairman came from one idea that I had a long time back, and I actually have this small prototype I made a few years ago, based on the story of the Little Prince. I don't know if you're aware of the Little Prince. It's a classic book for kids mostly, but it's kind of a very deep story about this guy that goes from planet to planet and visiting things. And I made a prototype based on that idea of a guy that was, you were looking at a planet in 2D, but then you could go on your spaceship and go into space and go into another planet. And I made a game based on that where you were, when you were on the planet, you thought the game was that. You would see the planet and the sky and the clouds, but then you could go into space and you see all the stars. And I like that feeling of moving from like one scale to another big scale. So that idea was kind of, I left it, like brewing in my mind for some time. And then because that scope of game was too big, I kind of transformed the idea into something more simple. And that became Satellite Repairman, where you still have that concept of being in the planet. You're looking at the trees and buildings, but then you can use your jetpack and go up to the atmosphere where you have stars and asteroids and all that. And you have that sense of difference between being on the surface and being in space.
Nice.
So the whole sound changes. You hear birds when you are in the ground, but then you see this when you are in space. You feel that vastness. So that was kind of the background idea. And then I started adding things to it, to Satellite Repairman. Basically, it's kind of it's a bit of an action / base building game where you kind of have to protect your planet from incoming missiles. And to do that, you set up a network of satellites connected to defense buildings and stuff like that. So you just have to maintain the whole thing working and endure those attacks and try to survive. And then some missions have a few more funny tasks that you have to accomplish, not just about defending, but yeah, more or less the concept is that.
Was there any game that because you said you had to change your initial idea because the scope was too big, right?
Yeah.
So was there any game that kind of help you with that? Because you look at that game and then oh, I could reduce my scope, but I can do something like that instead. Was there any game?
No, I don't think so.
So basically you just thought about it and then one day the idea just came.
Yeah, I've seen similar games recently. I've seen similar games, indie games, that follow that same idea of having the planet view, and then you go into space and you land in other planets. And I think even Super Mario Galaxy in a way, but it's a little bit different. But yeah, I've seen other games. But at the time I was thinking about it, I didn't know any game that was even closely similar to the idea. Yeah.
So who's your target audience? Who do you think would enjoy playing your game?
You mean Satellite Repairman or in general?
Satellite Repairman.
Satellite Repairman is a bit different from all my other games because I usually develop games that are more about learning something and having a kind of a positive experience. So when you finish the game, you change as a person. That's always my target for my games. And Satellite Repairman was an experience where I left this path and tried something different. So it's a game focused on action and fast gameplay. So people that like a little bit of strategy, but like fast gameplay. It's very fast paced. You really don't have much time to think a lot and plan a lot. You really have to do a lot of stuff in short time to accomplish the missions.
So you mentioned your other games, which is, you said something more, would you say they are considered more experimental?
Well, Autumn was a very experimental game. My first big game was Autumn, and it was very experimental. I had this problem when I was submitting it to stores that they ask you for the genre of the game, the type of game,
right.
And I cannot classify it because it's not a simulation, it's not a platformer, it's not anything that exists. It's something different. So it's very experimental. It's kind of a different game. Then my other game was a game of changes, and that's more like a puzzle platformer kind of thing. Yeah, more or less that. Yeah.
Why are you so interested in making this kind of experimental games where people, like you say, you learn and then you just think about the game? What drives you to make those kind of games?
Well, I think there are right now we have a lot of games that are just purely for entertainment. Like I told you, I play Rocket League, so it's a game that for me is just about wasting a little bit of time but having fun, and it's fine. I love those games too. I think that games as a medium also have a responsibility in a sense of not just being for entertainment's sake, but also as a way to teach something, to help you change and grow as a person. And so because I feel that there are already many games that are just for fun, and we don't have that many games that are for something else, for something higher, more positive. So I prefer to put my energy into that, into creating games that go more into this line of thinking. So I try to give more priority to that.
Right. So can you explain or describe your work environment. So your workspace, your physical, where you actually do the game programming development, the hardware you use, the different software, the different tools, maybe communication tools, all the things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually very, very simple. Because right now it has not been the case all the time, but right now I'm working mostly from home. So my workspace is basically just a very simple desk. I have my desktop computer and a big screen. Unfortunately, just one screen. I would love to have dual monitor, but not yet. I have a Wacom tablet. Sometimes I try to do drawing stuff. For autumn, I did all the art myself, which was not bad, but I kind of suck as an artist, so I try to get other people to help me to do better looking things. And yeah, I don't have any special hardware. It's just my computer and my laptop. Very simple. For software, like I said before, I use Linux as my main operating system. So my choices of software always tend to be a bit more limited because I need to get software that runs in Linux natively, not using emulators and virtual machines and all of that. So I use mostly freeware. Free software, open source software. My game engine of choice right now is Godot, which is a fantastic game engine. Really, yes, good perspectives for the future. And I use Inkscape for vector art, GIMP, and Krita for other kind of image processing, Audacity for audio, and what else? Blender, of course, for 3D and video editing. Blender is fantastic. And then very small programs for specific uses for some specific tasks. But these are mainly the ones I use daily.
So you mainly work alone, right?
I mainly work alone, yeah. I had for Satellite Repairman, it was the first time that I actually hired an artist to work with me. So Satellite Repairman has, I think, very, very cool art style, and many people praise it for that. And that was because I didn't do it. It was because there was some professional person doing the art, and it came out really well. Yeah. So, but we worked at a distance, so remotely, because it was from different countries. But that was the first time I did like a shared work thing. I was mainly working on the code and the game design, and he worked on the art, and that also freed my time a lot to work on the game. So development time was much smaller than if I had to do all the art myself. But mostly, yeah, I work alone.
Right. So, Satellite Repairman is your third game, and you said this game is very different compared to what you've made previously. So, but have you learned from making the first two games and then being able to apply that to Satellite Repairman, even though it's very different?
Yeah, for sure. There are always things you're learning at every game, even in smaller games, like for game jams. There's always thing you're learning on how to do better. Sometimes in terms of designing the game, in testing the game, in getting feedback. There are so many areas that you're always learning. Even if the game styles are totally different, you always learn. So it's good to, I heard once, and I think it's very true, that you only start making good games after you make like 10 games, because you already made a lot of mistakes and you've learned a lot. So I'm still a bit far away from that, but I hope that I'm improving all the time, and I think my next game will be even better. So, yeah.
Nice. So I'm interested to know, is there a game developer like community in Portugal that you can go for meetings or like workshops or something like that?
There is. I'm not so close to them physically because they're based in Lisbon, in the capital. But there is a Facebook group which is very active, and a Slack server also, which is also quite active. We have a few companies in Portugal that develop games professionally, and we have a few indie developers who are also very well known. They made games not only for PC but even for consoles.
Right.
So in Portugal we don't have so much recognition for game development yet. It's kind of a hidden industry, not so well recognized, but it's growing slowly. And I think maybe in a few 2 or 3 years we'll have more. We have a few, like 1 or 2 annual events, like a conference for developers and for games. So it's growing. It's growing.
Are there any like government programs or government funding for game
Not
development?
not in Portugal. We have at the level of the European Union, there are some funds, but they are very specific for very specific things they target, and it's not so good. I think in England, for instance, you have kind of more support, and even in Northern Europe countries, you have more support. Not in Portugal, no.
Okay, so one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you is because you posted on Reddit about this service that you paid for. So I thought it was interesting and it's good to at least bring up so that we can raise some awareness. So can you tell people what that service is? Like, we don't need a name or anything, but just like
Sure.
what was it? What did it promise to do and all that?
Yeah. So long story short, and I think every indie game developer that worries a little bit about marketing and visibility,
Right.
and does searches on how to improve will bump into these websites that sell you packs of Twitter followers or Facebook likes and stuff like that. And I'm used to see this, and I don't usually buy into these things. And then I found this one. Actually, it found me. I received by email a kind of it was like a marketing email telling how I could get 20,000 visitors to my Steam store page for my released game, Satellite Repairman. And at the time, I was like, yeah, it sounded like a good idea because the game has good ratings. But I think the problem is visibility because it's not so well known, and I'm not well known. The game has very few sales. So I thought, yeah, 20,000 visits sounds awesome. And I made a quick math, and the price was not so high for this service. So I made a quick math, and worst case scenario, I would for sure cover the expense of the service. So I thought for myself, why not? You know. So I bought the service that would promise these 20,000 visits in 1 or 2 weeks time total. So I was monitoring the store page using Google Analytics. Thank God for Google Analytics. And I usually had at that time around 2 to 4 live visitors at any given time during the day in the page. And after a few hours of subscribing this service, I saw the visitor count bump into 30, 40, 50 visitors at any point in time. So I thought, wow, it's working and it's great. A lot of people are coming to view the game. And a few days passed, like 2, 3, 4 days, and the visitor count was still high, but the sale numbers were exactly the same. There was no change at all. So I thought this was a bit strange because, okay, maybe even if all these people don't like the game, at least some would like and will try it because the price is also quite low. And so I thought something was a bit fishy in this. So I started to research a little bit more about what this company was, who the guy behind it was, and something that I should have done before, but I was a little bit. I didn't think very well about this before I purchased it. So
Right.
and the more I started to research, the more fishy it sounded. I started to look at the YouTube channel, the tweet followers, and it was all like, it looked like bot accounts and
Right.
all this stuff. So when I went to Google Analytics to research a little bit better who the visitors were, and I realized after some digging that it was mostly from bots. Basically, the guy had a service with bots that will just give you direct visits to the page to make your visit count go up. But in fact, there are no real people visiting and watching the game. And that's why it doesn't translate into any sales. It doesn't convert into sales. So yeah, I had the luck that the guy agreed to refund me because I exposed him and I told him that I knew what he was doing. And the guy, I don't know if he was afraid or not, he refunded me. And I posted on Reddit just for people to to be careful with these kind of things. Okay, do not fall into this like I did, and to think things thoroughly and be careful with what you pay for. So that's more or less the story. Short version.
So, what made you think that they were bots? The origin of the visitors.
Yeah, mostly I first went to check where they were coming from,
Right.
because if you are advertising the game, you must be putting links somewhere, right? and the guy had not put any video on YouTube, any tweet in Twitter. So they must be coming from somewhere, but the referrals said they were coming from nowhere. They were direct links, like if you were typing the address of my game directly in the address bar. So that was very strange because you cannot get thousands of people to type an address. They need to click a link. So that sounded strange for me. Then I went to look at the network info, which kind of shows the network the person is connected to, the internet service provider, etc. And they were all coming from something Amazon, which is like Amazon has these platforms for servers and for bots, right? And then I went at the screen resolution because Google Analytics lets you see all this. And the screen resolution was like 300 pixels. So nobody uses 300 pixels. So this is like a dumb value for some script, you know.
Yeah.
And 95% of the visitors were coming from Amazon and with 300 pixels screen resolution. So yeah, for sure, these were scripts. So like I said, thank you for Google Analytics, and always connect Google Analytics so you can monitor these things.
So, were you ever worried that using this service is against any sort of like terms of service or something? Like
As far as I know, it
Steam,
isn't.
Steam
I mean,
rules or something? Oh, it
as
isn't?
far as I know, it isn't. You can, because there are paid services, and for example, if you go to Fiverr, you can actually pay people for them to advertise your game, and they go to forums and they go to tweets and they advertise your game. I mean, it's just advertising in social media. It's not illegal in any way. So I thought this guy would be doing the same. He would somehow advertise the game in many different channels because he had a YouTube channel with many viewers and
So
tweeters.
Steam's TOS doesn't say anything about like bots or whatever.
I never read into it because I never thought it would be bots. So that would not even, it didn't even cross my mind this would be bots. I
Right.
thought it was like real people, you know, just like advertising in social media. That's what I thought. One thing I realized is that I think Steam filters bots because in the Steam stats, in our own Steam panel for administrating the game, the statistics doesn't show a big spike like Google Analytics does. So they I assume they are kind of filtering the bots. They know it's bots, so they're not counting them in.
Right.
But I'm not sure about this. I think they do that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are you doing in terms of marketing for a satellite repairman now?
Well, right now, nothing, to be honest, because after I finished with Satellite Repairman and after like a few weeks passed, I had this really exciting idea for a new game. I think this is the problem with all game developers. There's always more ideas to implement and to try. So now I'm really excited in starting a new game, and I'm already prototyping and testing new stuff. And I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be my best game ever, which is not hard because I don't have that many. But so now I'm really excited with this. I'm researching a lot and already doing a lot of stuff for that. So I'm not putting so much energy into Satellite Repairman. After releasing Satellite Repairman, I spent maybe 2-3 weeks taking a closer look at what people were saying, at bugs. I released like 5 different patches to make sure the bugs were all fixed. And right now I think it's like in cruise mode. The game is very stable. It doesn't have any serious known problems. So yeah, I kind of let it go.
So you haven't thought about like sales or humble bundles or stuff like that?
Yeah, there will be sales in the future. I didn't want to rush into sales or bundles right away because
Right.
I have this opinion that sales should be a bit further apart from the launch date because I think it's a bit disrespectful for people who buy your game at full price and then 1 week after you're making bundles in some websites, and I think it's not so good as you know, you're respecting your buyers and that will bought it on first day or whatever. So yeah, there will be sales, of course, for Satellite Repairman, but I'm giving it some space, some time.
Do you feel because I've seen quite a lot of games, they come out and then after a month or 2 months they'll either be on sale or be in a bundle. Do you think do you think they are? Do you think their normal price is not the actual price that they're going for?
Well, there are two different answers for that, and I think, yeah, it depends really. I think I have seen this in some marketing documents and advices that you should always price your game higher than what it actually is, so that
Right.
when you make a sale, you are actually selling it at the real price,
Right.
so
Right.
that you don't lose money. I don't really like this way of thinking. I don't think it's a very honest way of selling your product. But I understand some people do it because it works. Because people buy
Because
more
when
games
people
when they
see like
are, yeah,
50%, they're like
yeah,
get more
yeah,
attracted to it.
yeah. It's marketing psychology. If it's on
Yeah.
sale, you go and buy it, even though the price is still high.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one way. The other, I think many people go to bundles and go to sales quickly because like me, they are expecting to have some sort of results from their game, and they get disappointed when they don't. And they feel like, I mean, that's what I felt, that I put a lot of energy and money into it, and then you hardly get it back from the sales you managed to have. So when you kind of start to thinking, how can I make money out of this? So you end up in bundles and sales, because that's the only way you can get more money out of it. Because really, after the first month is passed, nobody cares about your game anymore. It's very, because there are so many games coming out every day, so many games, that you're just buried in a pile
Right.
of games, and your
Right.
game
Right.
is 1 month old. Who cares?
Right.
So it's really hard.
Do you do this full time?
Sorry.
Do you do this full time?
At the moment, I'm doing this almost full time. Let's say 80% full time. Yeah. At the time I was doing Autumn, I was still working in a company. I was working as a programmer. So I kind of programmed Autumn on nights and weekends, and that's why it took me a bit more time than it should. But yeah,
Right.
now
Right.
I'm almost full time working on this.
So are you just surviving on your savings, or you just do like small little freelance work on the
Yeah,
side?
I do freelance on the side. Yeah, that helps a lot, because from games it's still a bit hard
Mm.
to survive.
So okay, so last question for you, Nuno. How far away is your next game?
How far away?
Yeah.
Wow. I would say very far away, because this time I want to do something really, really good. And I have this idea, and I'm trying to make it happen. Uh, I know that to make this idea come true, it's going to be difficult, because I would need extra funding for the game. I would need really to hire an artist or two
Right.
artists to help me with the
Right.
game. I don't know if that's going to be possible. So if I don't get any funding at all, probably the game will be, let's say, 8 months away. If I get extra funding and I get more people to help me, so I can increase a little bit the scope of the game, maybe 1 year and a half away. So it's going to be my longest game ever, actually, because all my games have been in between 5 to 9 months. So this will be a little bit. It's going to be 3D also, so that also
Right.
complicates things a little bit more.
So one last question. What
Sure.
what what made you feel okay, this time I'm gonna do like the biggest one?
What made me feel?
Yeah, what
I don't know. It was just the idea. I just had this idea, and I loved the idea, and I started researching the idea, and I started to play and make small prototypes. And the more I see it, the more I like it. So I started to like brain dump, like dumping all the ideas I could connect with this game. And I see so many things I want to do with it. And I know that I'll have to cut it to make it a little bit shorter. But I'm really excited. I think it's gonna be a great game. Yeah, it's more about exploration and open world kind of thing.
nice.
So yeah, it's gonna be my first time doing this. I'm trying to do every game I do. I'm trying to try a different genre of game, so that I also get more experience in doing different things.
Nice. Okay, so yeah, thank you very much, Nuno, for joining
Well,
us.
thank you for having me.
Thank you for your time. So
Thank-
you can find all the links in the description below as usual. You'll find a link to Repairman to on Steam, and all the I'll be looking for all the social media links to put there as well, so you can follow Nuno. So yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Bye bye.
So and thank you for anyone that's listening and watching this, and we will see you next time. Bye bye.